Welcome to the Deep Dive. This week, we're synthesizing signals from, well, three pretty critical global risk areas. These have really been dominating the landscape, covering roughly October 20th through the 26th.
Sorry.
If you want a shortcut to understanding how system trust is being tested or maybe failing across cyber, finance, and even conflict stability, you're definitely in the right place.
We've been digging into sources detailing, first, a massive $15 billion crypto seizure. Unprecedented, really. Then there's a significant federal data breach we need to talk about. And finally, a ceasefire crisis in the Middle East that is, well, let's just say it's hanging by a thread. Our mission today is basically to turn this pile of complex, kind of separate risk data into verified, usable insight for you.
Absolutely. Think of it as connection spotting. We're going to drill down into three critical points where, operational failure meets, frankly, overwhelming enforcement power and also diplomatic fragility. It's quite the mix.
It is. So specifically, we'll be analyzing, one, that U.S. government breach impacting staff at FEMA and CBP, critical agencies. Two, the historic $15 billion crypto seizure targeting those huge organized scam networks in Southeast Asia.
15 billion.
Yeah.
Still trying to wrap my head around that number.
It's huge. And third, the incredibly fragile Israel-Gaza ceasefire crisis, which really escalated after some lethal strikes occurred.
Okay, let's unpack that first item then, because this one really hits the core of government operations. Readiness, even. We're talking about the federal breach confirmed late September. It specifically went after workforce data for staff at FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and CBP, Customs and Border Protection, particularly Region 6.
And what's really important for you to grasp here is that this isn't just a tech story, a network story. It's fundamentally about people and operations.
How so?
Well, when you expose workforce data, the personal information of staff at agencies that handle disaster response, border security, you're directly undermining their ability to function, their mission continuity.
Right, if the staff themselves feel compromised.
Exactly. If those people can't trust that their own data is secure, how does that impact their focus, their effectiveness, when things go sideways in the real world? It's a direct hit to readiness.
And the technical side here, it involved remote access tech, right? Citrix.
That's what the reports confirm, yes.
Yeah.
A Citrix-based intrusion. And when you look at the timeline, the dwell time, how long the actor was actually inside the system undetected, it's pretty alarming. This wasn't quick.
Not a smash and grab.
No, not at all. The timeline really suggests a serious lapse in detection. Initial access was logged way back on June 22nd.
June 22nd.
Yeah, using existing Citrix credentials to get into FEMA Region 6 systems. And it took 2 full weeks until July 7th for DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, to even be notified that someone was inside and critically trying to escalate their privileges.
So for 15 days, basically 2 weeks, the actor was just exploring, looking around.
Pretty much. Exploring the network, figuring out what they could access, what they could take.
Okay, so what happened when DHS finally found out on July 7th?
Well, thankfully, they acted quickly once the alarm was raised. By mid-July, they'd restricted remote access, and they really tightened up multi-factor authentication MFA specifically for that affected Region 6.
But the damage was done by then.
That's the problem, isn't it? As we often see. The internal review, which ran from late July through August, confirmed it. Employee data had been exfiltrated. It was gone.
And that led to consequences internally, I gather, not just tech fixes.
Correct. There was accountability. The confirmed cybersecurity failures, they led directly to disciplinary actions within the IT teams by late August. And the fact that the agencies actually confirmed the employee data stuff publicly around September 29th and 30th, that signals a pretty clear internal admission that, yeah, critical security protocols failed here. They allowed an actor to sit inside their systems for weeks using a known remote access method.
So let's connect this for the listener. Why does a regional breach, even one involving employee data at important agencies, matter in the bigger picture of global risk? Why should you care?
That's the key question, isn't it? Well, first, like we said, breaches like this erode staff trust. That damages mission continuity, especially during a crisis. But tactically, compromised workforce data is digital ammunition.
Ammunition.
Think about it. It drastically increases the risk of really targeted spear phishing attacks, impersonation attempts against these frontline people at FEMA, at CBP.
So you could pretend to be a colleague, send a malicious link.
Precisely. If a hostile actor gathers enough personal detail about staff, they're potentially just one convincing email away from compromising the mission itself or maybe accessing even more sensitive data down the line.
So what should we expect to see happen next?
I think we have to anticipate major modernization reviews across federal agencies, probably a significant move away from some of these legacy remote access technologies like Citrix, if they can't be secured properly, and definitely far more stringent auditing and monitoring across all federal networks after this kind of exposure.
Okay, now let's pivot. Completely different angle here. If that first story highlighted a kind of internal government failure, well, this next one shows a massive external success for government enforcement.
A very different story, yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The sheer scale of financial enforcement. We're talking about the US and the UK acting together to freeze, get this, $15 billion in Bitcoin, announced around October 14th.
$15 billion. Let that sink in. To give you some context, this is it's arguably the largest single asset seizure in the history of digital finance enforcement. Period.
Wow.
And the target wasn't, a single drug cartel or something relatively straightforward. No, this targeted an alleged forced labor scam ecosystem, a massive network behind that horrible pig butchering fraud we keep hearing about.
Yeah, we hear that term pig butchering a lot now. Can you just quickly recap what that actually involves? It sounds awful.
It is awful. It's a really sophisticated long game scam. It's social engineering, basically. The criminals, they fatten the pig, that's the victim, by grooming them, often using dating apps or social media. They build trust, sometimes even what feels like a real romantic connection, over weeks, maybe months.
Okay.
Then, once that trust is solid, the scammer introduces a fake crypto platform, maybe a fake investment opportunity. The victim might make a few small investments that look successful, see some fake returns.
Building confidence?
Exactly, building confidence. Then comes the butchering. The scammer pushes for a huge, life-altering final deposit, something irreversible. And once the money's in, poof, the scammer, the platform, everything vanishes. The scale of human tragedy tied up in $15 billion through that method is just immense.
It's staggering. And the ability to trace all those individual payments back to these massive criminal wallets, that suggests governments are throwing some serious resources at this now.
Industrial level resources, yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one agency. This involved the kind of triple threat, didn't it?
That's what it looked like. A really coordinated punch.
Absolutely. It shows governments can achieve this kind of tracing and enforcement at scale, even with crypto. So on October 14th, you had the Department of Justice, the DOJ, unsealing the indictment. That specifically targeted the chairman of a group called the Prince Group and announced the $15 billion seizure.
Okay, that's prong one, the indictment and seizure.
Right, but that was just part of it. The Treasury Department played a massive role here.
How so?
Two key actions from Treasury. First, OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, designated 146 targets, basically added them to the sanctions list.
Making it illegal for anyone to deal with them.
Globally, yes, huge impact. But second, and this is maybe the most powerful tool they have, FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, move to actively cut a specific entity named Huani off from the U.S. financial system entirely.
Wait, cut off from the U.S. financial system. What does that actually mean for a group operating, presumably mostly overseas?
It's often called the financial death penalty. It's Section 311 of the Patriot Act, typically. FinCEN essentially disconnects them from the entire global dollar infrastructure.
Wow.
It means Huani can't process transfers in U.S. dollars. They can't access U.S. correspondent banks. They're effectively isolated from the legitimate global economy. It's an assertion of financial power that goes way beyond just seizing the Bitcoin. It hits their entire operational lifeblood.
So what's fascinating here, then, is that seizing crypto at this kind of industrial scale, it really proves governments can trace it, freeze it, forfeit it. It sort of undermines that whole criminal idea of crypto being totally anonymous and untouchable.
It certainly challenges that narrative very strongly.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, what's the forward-looking indicator here? If enforcement proves it can do this, what do the bad guys do next?
Well, you have to expect immediate and, frankly, aggressive, evasive moves.
Yeah.
Criminals aren't just going to give up because of one big seizure. They'll likely intensify their use of more sophisticated privacy coins, things like Monero. They'll use advanced mixing services more heavily to try and obscure the transaction history. And they'll definitely engage in more complex jurisdictional hopscotch moving funds quickly between countries with weaker enforcement or less cooperation.
Trying to stay one step ahead.
Always. So for any compliance professionals listening right now, this is your immediate action item. You need to update your sanctions screening protocols like yesterday and refine your Know Your Transaction or KYT alerts.
To catch what specifically?
To catch these new OFAC designations, obviously, but also the related crypto wallet addresses that the blockchain analytics firms likely identified and shared during this investigation. This isn't static. It's a real-time update you need to make.
Okay, a huge enforcement success there. Now, finally, let's pivot again. We go from cyber failure to financial success and now to geopolitical instability and humanitarian risk. The ceasefire crisis, the truce that was breached between October 19th and 21st.
Yes, a very different kind of risk profile here. Highly sensitive, incredibly volatile. You have a fragile truce that the moment it breaks down, immediately risks spilling over regionally. And of course, huge humanitarian setbacks.
And the core issue seems to be conflicting information.
Yeah, it's a major part of it. You have competing claims, often mutually exclusive claims, about who violated the ceasefire first or how. This drives diplomatic urgency behind the scenes, but it also seriously complicates the critical decisions about getting aid to people who need it on the ground.
Let's just walk through that timeline again because it shows how quickly things fell apart.
It really does. So October 17th, the truce framework takes hold. Aid negotiations start. There was, some cautious optimism.
Optimism.
Very brief. Within 48 hours, October 19th, there's an attack attributed to Hamas by Israel that reportedly kills 2 Israeli soldiers. Almost immediately following that, Israeli airstrikes commence. And according to the various sources on the ground, those strikes resulted in more than 24 reported deaths on the Palestinian side.
That kind of immediate, lethal escalation? It just shows how thin the ice was.
Incredibly thin. Then, October 20th, Israel signals, okay, the ceasefire and aid deliveries will resume. But importantly, only after intense diplomatic engagement, particularly from the U.S.
So diplomacy pulled back from the brink, temporarily.
Temporarily. Because even with that high-level engagement, the very next day, October 21st, strikes were still continuing, and you had both sides accusing the other of violations. It just highlights the intense difficulty mediators face in trying to stabilize things and even confirm basic facts in that kind of environment.
Does this kind of geopolitical flare-up immediately ripple back into the cyber and financial risks we were just talking about? How does this connect for, say, a risk professional listening?
Oh, absolutely. They intersect. Geopolitical instability like this is practically an open invitation for state-sponsored or state-aligned cyber activity. As kinetic conflict resumes or escalates, you should expect to see increased digital targeting. Critical infrastructure, financial institutions, communications networks in the region, and sometimes beyond, they all become targets.
In the financial side.
It complicates everything, especially for humanitarian aid. Moving money for aid becomes much riskier. Compliance burdens shoot up for NGOs and international organizations. Anyone moving funds into that area has to constantly reassess their risk tolerance, update their sanctions screening, check everything, especially given the volatility and the potential for funds diversion.
So the aid flow itself is an indicator.
It's a real-time barometer of diplomatic traction, yes. Any sustained breakdown in getting aid through reliably, that risks escalating border tensions elsewhere. It could even trigger shifts in maritime security postures in the Eastern Mediterranean. It's all connected.
So if the headlines are confusing, full of competing claims, you're saying we need to look past the noise and track tangible things on the ground, verification points.
Exactly. If you want to understand the real stability or lack thereof, track concrete things. 3 key ones.
Okay.
1, which border crossings are actually open and operational for aid convoys? Not just announced as open, but physically letting trucks through.
Got it. Operational reality.
2, what are the verified daily convoy counts? How much aid is actually getting into the necessary areas each day? Numbers matter.
Right.
And 3, look for transparent, ideally independent, attribution of incidents when they occur. Don't just accept the first claim from one side or the other. Wait for verification. Those are the facts on the ground that tell the real story.
Okay. So bringing it all together, we looked at 3 really different events this week. A federal data breach, a massive crypto seizure, a ceasefire breaking down. What's the common thread? What does it all mean for you?
I think the real underlying insight, the takeaway from this week's signals, is this kind of paradox of state effectiveness, especially for the U.S. Yeah, on one hand, you saw the U.S. government demonstrate, frankly, unprecedented reach and capability to police global cyber finance, seizing $15 billion, using FinCEN to functionally disconnect actors from the financial internet. That's a massive success of enforcement power.
Right. Clear capability shown.
But, on the other hand, simultaneously, core government operational integrity, just basic cyber hygiene, protecting the data of its own FEMA and CBP staff from relatively common exploits that failed.
Hmm.
So you have proven external enforcement muscle flexing at the same time as demonstrated internal infrastructure fragility. This week really tied the success and the failure of system trust directly to real-world outcomes. Both happened at once.
So the real learning then is in watching what happens next, verifying the follow-through.
Precisely. Don't just read the headlines from this week. We
Yeah.
really encourage you to track those follow-up indicators we talked about. Verify the federal remediation milestones for that breach. Are they actually replacing Citrix? Are audit trails improving? Look for those sanctions evasion patterns using new privacy tools in the crypto space in response to that huge seizure. Are mixers getting more traffic? And maybe most importantly, monitor the tangible stability of those aid corridors in the Middle East. That will tell you far more about the true state of diplomatic success or failure than any official statement from a world capital.
The next step is always verification.
Always verification. That's where the real insight lies.